All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a classic tale of drought, intense hard work, bitter betrayal, and honestly, a brilliantly cunning trap. If you appreciate a story where sheer intelligence and strategy completely outmaneuver greed and deception, you are in for an absolute treat. We're going to break down this beautifully structured narrative that perfectly illustrates the real-world consequences of our actions. So here's the big question to kick things off. Does honesty actually always win out against pure greed? I mean, it's super easy to say yes in theory, right? But let's look at how it plays out in reality. Our story starts with a guy named Bouchon. He's literally forced to flee his home village because of a devastating drought. Crops are totally ruined, there's not a single drop of water, and it's basically do or die. He wanders into a new village called Vijaypur with absolutely nothing. No cash, no home, just his word and a serious willingness to put in the work. Chapter 1. Honesty and hard work. So, a wealthy farmer named Jagat Seth offers him a job, but man, it is grueling. Bhushan is put in charge of exactly 100 animals. We are talking 50 cows and 50 buffaloes. Every single day, he's got to clear out the waste, haul the fodder, and make sure every last one of them has water. And for all this backbreaking labor, his starting pay is a mere 200 rupees a month, plus a couple of meals a day. Bhushan, having literally zero other options, takes the deal. He even asks to just sleep right there in the smelly cowshed to solve his housing situation. But here's the thing, his crazy dedication actually pays off. Bhushan doesn't just do the bare minimum. He works with absolute honesty and intense care. And because he takes such amazing care of these animals, the farm's milk quality and quantity actually go up. Jagat Seth definitely notices this and bumps his pay from 200 to 400 rupees a month. Over a few years of super frugal living, still sleeping in that cowshed until he could finally afford a tiny hut, Bhushan manages to scrape together a highly respectable 5,800 rupees. Chapter 2. The Zamindar's Greed. Now with 5,800 rupees to his name, Bhushan runs into a new headache, keeping that cash safe. He's out working all day, leaving his little hut totally empty, which makes it a sitting duck for thieves. So, leaning on his boss Jagat Seth's advice, he decides to hand his life savings over to the village zamindar, who's essentially a powerful local landlord. Now you might be wondering, why on earth would he trust this guy? Well, first off, the zamindar has this stellar public reputation for being incredibly honest. Second, his compound is heavily guarded, making a robbery virtually impossible. And third, Jagat Seth himself vouched for the guy. So Bhushan walks in and hands over his pouch of exactly 5,800 rupees. And the zamindar, he just waves him off. He refuses to even count the cash, playing the part of this magnanimous, trustworthy leader. He literally says, "I trust you." Fast forward 2 years, and the situation completely flips. After all that sweat and toil, Bhushan decides it's finally time to buy his own patch of land. So he goes back to the zamindar to get his savings. And right here, we see Bhushan's blind trust completely shatter against the zamindar's sudden, cold deceit. The zamindar looks Bhushan dead in the eye and pretends he has absolutely no clue who he is. No way, right? He suddenly demands legal documents and stamp papers, the exact stuff he completely brushed off when taking the money in the first place. Bhushan is desperate. He pleads, he begs, he even falls to the zamindar's feet. But that just makes the zamindar show his true colors. Instead of handing back the cash, he accuses Bhushan of being a total fraud trying to extort him. And then he shouts this incredibly brutal order to his guards, "Beat him until he loses consciousness. He questioned my honesty." It's wild. He literally weaponizes his own fake reputation to justify violently attacking an innocent man with sticks. They toss Bhushan out onto the street, completely battered and bruised. Chapter 3. The Seth's Clever Plan. Bruised, broken, and totally defeated, Bhushan spills the whole story to Jagat Seth. After Bhushan misses 2 whole days of work recovering from the beating, Seth goes to check on him. And when Seth realizes the zamindar is running this massive scam, building his own empire by defrauding innocent folks, he feels deeply responsible. But Seth knows he can't just storm the gates with force, and he certainly doesn't have any magical legal papers. He's gonna have to outsmart him. He targets one fundamental human flaw: pure, unadulterated greed. Knowing the zamindar is obsessed with money, Seth cooks up a 3-step master trap, dangling a prize so irresistible the guy won't be able to help himself. Get this. Seth casually strolls into the zamindar's house, carrying a suitcase stuffed with a staggering 50,000 rupees. To put that into perspective, that is nearly 10 times the amount Bhushan lost. It's a fortune. Seth completely plays to the Zamandar's massive ego. He flatters him, buttering him up, and asks if he'd be so kind as to keep this fortune safe while he supposedly travels out of state for business. You can practically imagine the Zamandar's eyes lighting up like slot machines. He thinks he just hooked the biggest fish in the entire village. And then, right on cue, exactly as they planned it, Bhushan arrives at the Zamandar's house. Now the Zamindar is in a real pinch. But, completely blinded by that massive 50,000 rupee bait sitting right there in Seth's suitcase, he makes a highly calculated choice. He spins around, immediately apologizes to Bhushan, claims it was all a big misunderstanding, and actually hands back Bhushan's 5,800 rupees right there in front of Jagat Seth. Why? It's all a performance. He's putting on a show of honesty. He is more than willing to sacrifice a measly 5 grand now to secure the absolute trust he needs to steal 50 grand later. Chapter 4. True Fruit of Honesty. But the trap is about to snap shut. The very second Bhushan safely leaves with his recovered savings, Jagat Seth's servant bursts into the room, perfectly executing the final phase of this sting operation. He shouts out this fake news. "Master, the traders are actually coming to our village. You don't need to travel." Seth acts totally surprised. "Oh, wonderful," he says. "Well, I guess I won't be needing to travel after all." And with a polite, knowing smile, Seth just picks up his suitcase with the 50 grand, thanks the Zamindar for his generous offer to help, and casually walks right out the front door. So, let's break down the beautiful final outcome of this brilliant zero-sum game. Bhushan, he got his hard-earned 5,800 rupees back and is totally whole again. Jagat Seth, he didn't lose a single dime. His 50 grand is perfectly safe. And the greedy Zamindar, he is left completely empty-handed. He gave up the cash he had already stolen, and the massive fortune he thought he was about to steal vanished into thin air. His own greed blinded him so perfectly, he walked right into the trap. The core takeaway from Jagat Seth's strategy here is absolutely clear. Those who earn their keep honestly, through actual sweat and sheer dedication like Bhushan, end up protected in the long run. But those who just feed off dishonest gains and exploit vulnerable people, like the Zamindar, they're basically setting themselves up for ruin. The Zamindar's own insatiable, bottomless appetite for wealth became the exact weapon used to take him down. To wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a thought to chew on. Put yourself right in Jagat Seth's shoes for a minute. Would you have had the absolute nerve to walk into a powerful, heavily guarded man's house and dangle a 50,000 rupee bait right under his nose? Or would you have handled that greedy Zamindar totally differently? I mean, it takes some incredible courage and deep psychological insight to pull off a maneuver like that. Thank you so much for joining me as we unpack this brilliant story. And hey, keep thinking strategically.